Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. Great program today. Ernesto Paredes is with me. He's the Executive Director of Easylift Transportation here in Santa Barbara. 2018 Man of the Year. A great guy, a humble guy. You'll learn a lot. I did. Ernesto Paredes on The Good Life next. Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. So glad you joined us today. You can always find us at goodlifetelevision.org, where we have all these great interviews. Full form interviews are there. There's also what we call power clips, where some great moments from those interviews. I think you really like it. So goodlifetelevision.org. You can find us also on all the social media platforms, and we're just so honored that you've joined us. I'm really excited about my guest today. Ernesto Paredes is with me. Ernesto, welcome.
Dean, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great having you. I loved reading your story. Ernesto is the longtime executive director of Easylift Transportation here in Santa Barbara, but he's also like a lot of other things. And so, but you know, first of all, I wanted to start with, you in 2018, you were the Man of the Year here in Santa Barbara Foundation, Man of the Year.
Yes.
If I was you and I went home and I was having a disagreement with my wife, I'd probably just say, I'm Man of the Year, right?
Yeah, it's gotten me very little leeway there, but
it didn't work.
No, it didn't work. But my mom loves it. So from that standpoint, it's been great. No,
but you grew up in Goleta here in the Santa Barbara area. Talk about that, kind of growing up and what it was like for you here.
Well, thank you for that again. My parents moved to Santa Barbara. They were from Texas.
Okay.
And they went west, and they actually had relatives that had moved to San Jose. And so on their way back from San Jose after visiting, they had to stop to get some formula for my brother. Well, not formula, but some milk for my brother on their way down. He's an older brother, 4 years older. And they stopped in this little community called Santa Barbara. And, a pretty nice place. And my dad, being a teacher, high school teacher, thought, well, let me see what they're paying the teachers here. And it turned out they were paying a lot of money. They were paying $18,000 a year, and that was great money back then. And they were actually looking for a teacher. And so 6 months later, my family traveled here. They thought there's a university here. What a great community! And so we moved to right off of Patterson, and just outside of Santa Barbara proper. But it was one of the greatest experiences growing up there, because I got to get access Santa Barbara, but for me, my other home was the Goleta Boys Club before it was Goleta Boys and Girls Club, and that's had a huge impression on me also.
Yeah, talk about that. I read about that.
Yeah, well, it was very fortunate. A lot of people locally, probably at the time, grew up with Sal Rodriguez, who was the longtime director, and he was one of my basketball coaches. And so he was one of those people that he would push us. He had confidence, that quiet confidence in us. And it was funny because I grew up in Santa Barbara, and as much as I loved it here, I thought, it's a boring place. There's nothing to do here in Santa Barbara. And we'd go travel to Los Angeles for basketball tournaments. And I would always value a community by how great their billboards were, because we don't have billboards in Santa Barbara. So I thought, oh my God, this place is fantastic. I want to live here. They got a Wendy's, they got a Burger King. This is great. But no, we had those great experiences of growing up with someone that was that first non-parent mentor. That was really important. That someone that had saw something in us, myself and my teammates, that we thought, this is we could actually do this. We could beat these teams that were bigger than us, faster than us. But we were very lucky to have someone who really believed in us. So coming back, it was just one of those things that we were very lucky to grow up at the club.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Yeah.
And then you ended up, San Marcos, City College, USC.
Yeah.
And then I thought it was interesting. You studied gerontology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that how I pronounce
it? Gerontology.
Gerontology,
Correct.
which is the
study of the aging process.
Of the aging process. Yeah, tell me about that.
Well, it was interesting because when I was in school, I was always an athlete in high school, and I'll be honest with you, for me, I was a very good C student. I wasn't an A or B student. If I got an A, it was probably in athletics. And I worked as much as I wanted to be academically proficient. It just didn't come really easily to me. Mm-hmm. And so when I was getting ready to graduate, I thought, okay, my grades aren't prepared to go to the school I really want to go. So City College was a great transition from high school to learning how to budget my time, how to study. So I will always be very thankful for my experience at City College. And I thought I was going to get into physical therapy. Being an athlete, former athlete, I was always fascinated by the human body. But I'd always worked at a rehab institute in Santa Barbara, which is now Cottage Rehab. And I loved working with seniors because a lot of them, my grandparents were in Texas and Mexico. So I only got to see them really in the holidays. So it was, or you talk to them on the phone. And that was a hard relationship to maintain. But when I got to talk to individuals on a daily basis, working with physical therapy, as a physical therapy attendant, the stories were fascinating.
Yeah.
You know, growing up, you know, I was early dating, and I thought, I'd talk to some of these people, hey, didn't you go on a date last week? And we'd have these conversations. And he would tell me the same stories that I was going through, but they'd went through it 30, 40 years, 50 years before I did. So I started thinking, wow, these aren't just older people, these are individuals who have had unbelievable lives. And so that really attracted me to that, to the idea of getting to know seniors more and more. So when I went to USC initially, it was for physical therapy, but I took an elective course in gerontology. And that changed my world because I thought this is beautiful. And with that, again, I say the rest is history, that so to speak.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, my grandfather had a real love for seniors. And when he started the Turner Foundation, it was all about seniors. And he actually built these retirement homes and with all these programs and services for seniors. And I think one of the things that I discovered growing up was probably something similar to what you just mentioned, which is there's like a gold mine. You know, so many of these folks, the wisdom, you know, that we can't overlook, you know, in our community. And you're obviously in a business where that's probably a big part of what you do.
So you really, I mean, thank you for sharing that story, because that is something that is, a lot of people never get to see that early on. And actually he created something to support that.
Right.
And so for me, over the years, when we were in school at USC, they would tell us, all right, you know, this major, it's going to grow. It's going to get bigger and bigger because the need is going to continue to grow.
Right.
And sure enough, it's obviously very true. What's going on today is yet just a small microcosm of what's going to continue to happen of people trying to age in place, trying to age in their homes. It's hard and it's difficult for a lot of people to be able to afford to live in different senior communities. Some can, some are not prepared for it. So they try to live at home, but even then there's a lot of challenges being able to live independently at home. So it's something we would work with, and being in transportation, that's a piece of the solution, but it's not the full solution.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. Easylift Transportation. Here where we are in Santa Barbara, California. You've been the executive director for a long time. Talked about Easylift from somebody who's never heard of it. What is the vision? What do you do?
Well, it's a great, again, that's something I never thought it was as important as it is. It's access to the community. So Easylift Transportation started back in 1979 as a project of the local Easter Seals and the local Community Action Commission. They recognized there was a group of individuals who, if you recall, the MTD buses back in the day, you had to take 3 big steps to get up to the first floor of the bus. And obviously not anyone could readily do that. And if you're in a wheelchair, forget it. And so there was this group that thought, let's figure out how to get these individuals to the exact same places that we all want to go to, access to healthcare or to retail stores. And so what they would do is the original was a large RV, and they had volunteers that would actually pick people up in wheelchairs by hand and take them into the RV. It was as crude as it sounds. And financially it was even more difficult because transportation wasn't the sexiest of nonprofits, and so whatever they raised the month prior would be how much service they could deliver that month.
Oh wow!
So you might be a full-time driver this month, part-time driver the next month, and onward, until the funding really solidified itself in 1990 with the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. That was a huge game changer, one of the greatest, civil rights enactments in my lifetime. That changed so individuals can truly access the community. Now the responsibility ultimately falls on MTD, but MTD recognized there was this little organization called Easylift. If we kind of bring them up to snuff, we can kind of work with them, and they can provide the ADA service for our community.
Wow.
And it's actually a very unique model here in California, and there's no other model like it where it's subsidized by local government, but as a nonprofit, we're also able to fundraise and go after these individuals who really have unmet transit needs.
Yeah.
And so it accesses a lot of the individuals who are not just trying to get to, again, healthcare, medical, but all the other great qualities of life type of activities.
Yeah, and is it people with disabilities also?
Yeah.
Is that part of your?
It's a big part. It's probably about, of our 3,000 passengers every year, about 1,000 of them are individuals with more severe disabilities that for some reason they can't use the MTD bus. And usually it's their cognitive ability is a little bit challenged, so they qualify for our Dial-A-Ride. And we work with organizations like, I know you've been with like Alpha Resource Center and Hillside House, and we take their clients, take them to programs, take them to school opportunities, to work opportunities. So it's again, it's part of the solution of our community to get individuals out and about.
And solution, you just mentioned the word solution. It was fascinating to read about you, I just got to tell you. You're a really interesting guy.
My mom thinks so too. So
yeah, well, good. Well, Mom, if you're watching. But talk about being a problem solver. That's one of the things I read. One of the things you enjoy is being a problem solver. And I think that's so great and needed. A mentality of, in fact, one of my kind of mentors uses the word solutionary. He says, we need more solutionaries. The people that are not seeing just the problems, but are seeing solutions, partnerships, collaboration. And when I was reading about you, that seems to be in your DNA. How do I partner? How do we work together? How do we solve problems? But talk about that a little bit.
Thank you for that. Also, that segue, because going back to school, when I told you I wasn't the greatest academic student, but I really wanted to be part of what was going on, and I really admired the individuals that were ahead of the class. And so I would try to do is befriend them. And I thought, if maybe you could rub off on me. And it was one of those things. Now people call it a little bit more emotional intelligence. Relationships. How do you respond? How do you work with one another? And I found that was more my strength, is connecting with people and checking my ego and learning as much as that you're willing to share, and then turning around and working with someone else and picking up. And age has nothing to do with it. You could be older or younger, and I can still pick up a lot of wisdom from individuals, because your life experience dictates where you are today.
Yeah.
And so here I use that locally with my brother and sister nonprofits of figuring out, whether you may not be transportation, you could be arts or environmental, but maybe there's something that we could do together. And if there isn't, maybe you two can work together.
Right.
And again, for me, that's what really is the quality of a community. Is the health of a community is if we all support one another, because it's no good to have Easylift being very successful, yet everyone else is falling from the wayside. We have no place to take them.
Right.
So we need everybody to be successful.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
I read your favorite quote, which I think is really valuable and pertains to the world we're living in right now, which is, don't believe everything you think. I thought that's a great thought, that and especially in this climate that we're in, this divisive kind of world, where we all kind of think, it seems like most people are thinking what I think is right and you're wrong, and being open to the idea that I may not be right about everything. What a transformative impact that would have if that spread.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
I wish I was the original person that said that. Honestly, I was on my way to a meeting, and it was in a bumper sticker. And I thought, it was exactly that. It was a type of meeting where I knew there was going to be some differences of opinion. And I thought, there it was, don't believe everything you think. I thought, that's brilliant, because everything we believe or think was put there. Either we've read it, third person, somebody told us about it.
Right.
Our professors told us about that. And how many times have you had somebody say, "Oh, I've heard that person you're talking about. I don't like that person because they always do this, or they always do that. Mm-hmm. And then you meet
always
them,
is the key word.
Always, exactly.
Right.
And then you meet them and thinking, no,
right.
that was a really pleasant experience.
Right. And
that was one of those first things where I thought people didn't always believe what they thought about me early on. They allowed me to let's meet, let's talk, and figure out the best way. For me, if I could ever break bread with someone, then we have a relationship after that. It's one of the greatest gifts to be able to sit down with somebody, especially someone that you think doesn't have the same ideals, but chances are there's going to be a lot of similarities. And in Santa Barbara, I'll be honest and candid. I think sometimes we don't do that enough. I think we have a very big, great, loving community, but we think what we think, and if it, like you were saying earlier, if you don't believe what I think, then you're wrong. I have a hard time with that, and so back to what I was saying earlier, the more we could all come together and just take a slice of each other's playbook, I tell you, we'll be a lot healthier community, and beyond our community also.
Yeah, well, and that's just humility too, when I hear that, I think, that comes from a place of humility to say, I want to learn from you, which I just think about like my kids. That would be something I want to implant in them, that don't come with answers, come with listening first, because you can learn.
That's a great point. In fact, I remember when my son's 27 now, but go back 10, 15 years ago, he was about 10 or 12. And I was a younger executive, and this was the time where I would say a little immature executive, because this is back in the day when on Sunday paper and the news press, you'd have the social scene, and you have all the pictures, and you see, whose name was at what party. And I would professionally be jealous about organizations who were like, darn it, they raise all this money. I want that money for my organization. It was short-sightedness, but that's where I was at the time. And I remember listening to my son, and he was telling me about a friend of his who had just got a great award, and he was so happy for his friend. I thought, I had to sit back. I thought, I need a piece out of my son's playbook of thinking, we all need to share in one another's success. Right. And not feel like, I'm professionally jealous of you.
Right.
So over those years, those little life lessons, the more I got to participate with other organizations, go to their events, learn about the mission, see the passion of individuals, it made me appreciate being able to not only be a citizen in this community, but eventually be a donor of other organizations who are doing great things.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's great. One of the ventures you've been involved in is Social Venture Partners. What is that?
Well, it's a group of individuals here locally. It's made up mostly of business individuals, a lot of retired business individuals. And the idea for them is to find a cause and to pool not only their financial resources, but a lot of them, again, are semi-retired or retired CEOs. And they have a lot, we were talking about earlier, this wisdom, this knowledge. And rather than just letting it wither away, they're sharing it with newer CEOs or newer entrepreneurs, and figuring out how we can solve either a social issue or something that is an item which right now is a perfect time for social venture partners, because as they say, necessity is the mother of all, yes. Right. And this is something kind of thing that we don't know what we need right now, but a lot of seniors, and we were talking earlier, in order to live independently, there's going to be more solutions. There has to be more solutions for them, whether it's using technology. We have the telehealth now. Right. People can, rather than having to go all the way to your doctor's appointment, you can just right there on your laptop.
Right.
Or now there's an app on Alexa that would kind of take the place of that little button where it says, I've fallen, I can't get up. You just call out on this program, and it will immediately alert a family member saying something happened to your mother, your dad, and it will alert the authorities. So using technology, all these ideas, it kind of takes some money to back a lot of these ideas.
Right.
And that's what Social Venture Partners is trying to do, is find solutions to these problems that are growing in our community.
And then invest in them.
Yeah, not
money,
only
wisdom,
the financial, but the wisdom too.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And is it for profit, or is it? Is it for-profit investments?
It's a nonprofit. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
it's nonprofit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
You and I have several things in common, thankfully for me.
Not our hair. You're winning. You're winning.
I thought I was going to be bald by now because my grandfather on my mom's side was a goner, like 40. And I thought you got it from your mom's dad, and then here I am.
Well, I was the opposite. I thought I was never going to go bald, so we got bad information.
we had bad information. We're both middle sons.
Yeah.
With all three boys.
Yeah.
What was it like for you? I felt like I was kind of the peacemaker, still am, trying to hold it all together. Was that your experience?
You know, my experience was a little bit different, where my older brother is a great man, but he also was a great leader early on. So I always wanted to be my older brother.
Oh, really?
Whatever he did, I'm going to do. I mean, he ran track, I ran track. He ran, student council. I went student council. He went to City College. I went to City College. He went to USC. Same
really?
fraternity.
So you followed him.
I mean, I just really, truly followed his steps. He went to the business school at USC, and that's where we kind of splintered off. I really enjoyed working with seniors and went the gerontology route. And I thought, when I got back to Santa Barbara, in the nonprofit world, although I didn't really know what nonprofit was at the time, I was just looking for a job. And that's where my first job was at the YMCA, and I got a great first experience. Because the great thing about the YMCA is not only is it a nonprofit, but they have a little bit of a corporate setting. So you knew what you need to do to accomplish to get to the next level. And their trainings are fabulous. So this is one of those things that where my brother and I, we got to still work together because, again, he was a business person, so I would always call him and ask him, what do I need to do in this situation? My younger brother, he was all financial and has done very, very well for himself. He lives down in San Clemente, California.
Oh, really?
Loves it down there. And
nice.
My older brother's in San Diego. So I'm the only one that got to stay in Santa Barbara. So sometimes I'll tell him, I think I'm the richest one of the family because I get to be in Santa
Lifestyle.
Barbara. Yeah, right.
Well, and tell us about Ernesto Paredes Sr.
The original, my original mentor, my original hero. My father passed away almost 5 years ago, and I didn't, I've always loved, my dad always was, shared wisdom, and he would tell me what to look out for. And, back in the day, there weren't a lot of Latinos in our community in Santa Barbara. There were, but not in the areas that we were trying to develop in. And so he was trying to help me to, be careful about fitting into stereotypes. And so, thus, I was always, got to go student council, not the opposite, and always trying to be a rule follower to nauseam. I mean, I remember back in 3rd or 4th grade when the teacher would leave the room, all right, Ernesto, you're in charge of the, and I took a lot of pride in that because, again, like I was saying earlier, as much as I wasn't an academic student, I really wanted to be a model citizen. And, I'm so thankful that, I was able to persevere and stick to relationships, and again, that's for me. It's a credit to my mom, my dad, and my brothers, and again, very, very close family. And
that's
again,
so great.
Very lucky to have my dad as long as I have. Now, being his namesake, I have even a little bit more responsibility to that.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
and you kind of have this service first mentality, and I want to talk about that in a second, actually. But another thing we have in common is you have a love for stories. You were asked in one of these interviews, what's your most treasured possession? And you said, I don't have one. Memories, family, relationships. And you have a love of story, and I love that. I do too, which is why we're sitting here.
Yeah, right.
Because I feel like every time I'm with someone on that couch, it's like I'm unwrapping a gift.
Right.
There's a story. There's a powerful story. But talk about that, and especially how it affects your line of work. Because I know the way you lead, it seems like after reading about you, it's inspirational in the sense that you said, what would it be? How would you want the service to be if we were picking up your grandmother?
Yeah.
Your mother.
Yeah.
That's how we need to, which I think, because every person is not just somebody coming through. Each one is this valuable, wonderful human being.
That's right.
And they have a story.
That's
but
right.
Talk about that.
Yeah, well, again, early on, after my experience at the YMCA, I thought to myself, I really want to work in my chosen academic field, gerontology. And someone at the United Way said, hey, you should Well, actually, I went to them, to United Way, and I spoke to a friend of mine named Jim Rivera, who worked there at the time. And I asked him, Jim, tell me 10 organizations that you all support in our community. And he did, and I just picked up the phone and I called 10 executive directors and say, hey, I just want to, I'd like to come meet you and just introduce myself. I know you don't have a job opening, but I just want to kind of let you know who I am, and if anything ever opens up, remember me. Well, sure enough, about 2 weeks after I met with Easylift, they called me and said, hey, there's an opening just happened to pop up, and we don't want to take the time to look for somebody. We know we've met you. And so I went and I thought, transportation, again, not the sexiest thing. I'll be there a year or two and then move on to something else. But like you said, it was the stories. I'll never forget, this one individual that I got to get to know, because you talk on the phones, or I'd go out and ride alongs, and I'd kind of meet some of the individuals we were giving rides to. Very sweet, gentleman, and, just sweet and always caring and always asked me questions. He ended up passing away, probably about 2 months after I started. And I remember reading about it. This is, you'd read about it in the paper, and I thought, Mr. Such and Such just passed away. And then they gave his whole information of who he was. I thought, my goodness, this person what a rich life.
Right.
Unbelievable. He was, had family, he had all these things going for him, and he was still to the very end as sweet as he could be with us.
So
and
great.
So for me, I thought this is more than just transportation.
Right. You got to actually see the story.
Yes, and this is we're making a difference, and maybe it might be in the twilight of someone's life. Right. But if we can make bring a little smile,
right,
bring them something, a little happiness, that's my job, and I love doing that.
So good. Last question. We only have about 30 seconds. You were mentored by Larry Crandell, and in this town, Santa Barbara, California, Larry Crandell is a legend.
Yes.
But talk about him briefly, and then the value of mentors.
There was never a nonprofit that Larry didn't like. He loved all nonprofits. He wanted to support everybody, and I will always appreciate that. But also with Larry is one of those things that he was full throttle all the time. He wanted to raise money for as much organizations. I have a picture of myself and Larry in my office, and a younger staff member came to me and said, is that your father? And I said, no, that's Larry Crandell. And he's like, who's Larry Crandell? And made me realize, as much as great as we might become while we're out and about doing what we're doing, at some point, people are going to forget. Mm-hmm. So while we're doing what we're doing, it's full throttle. Mm-hmm. Go and at some point we'll pass the baton, and there'll be the next Larry Crandell. Right. I want to believe I have a little bit of Larry Crandell in me, so I can kind of promote the idea of community and sharing with one another.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Great way to finish. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
This has been
Appreciate
fun.
it. Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Ernesto Paredes, great guy. We'll see you next time.